Hey, what's up, y'all? It's me, the King of Comebacks with two Ks at the end. This is Creating Greatness. And today we have my man, Richard Dalton, back on the show. We tried to get it done last week, but I'll tell you what, God's timing is phenomenal. Uh, there were things that we didn't know about each other that day that we do know about each other today. And that's why I want to bring it to the table of displaying that rock bottom is fertile soil for growth. And there are some real positives about being there on rock bottom. We're going to get into it. Rich, how you doing today, brother?
Fantastic. How are you?
Hey, man, I'm blessed. I'm blessed because, I just think back on time. Well, first, I'm blessed to be able to see you, man, shining. A person that I know has been through a lot of the same things that I've been through. A person that is a testament that it is possible, man. There is redemption. And I wanted to shed light on the fact that we are here. We're still standing. Not only did we make it out, but we're exceeding all expectations. So talk to me, man, about where you came from and what you've been through and where you're at today.
I guess we could start, one of the most formative things that occurred to me was when I was 6, my dad committed suicide when I was downstairs in the basement. My mom was the one who found him. She never received any real therapy for that and held a lot of that in. 3 months later, my mom's only brother died. And then 6 months after that, my only grandparent died, my dad's mom. And I didn't know that my dad committed suicide until I think 4th grade. And that by that point in time, we'd moved for the 3rd time. Then we moved to New Jersey. So that was my 4th school or so. And I just had a lot of anger, a lot of hate, a lot of grief, misery, and I just never knew how to deal with it. And it just built up and built up as I got older. Got into harder and harder sports, football and wrestling, Marine Corps, law enforcement, mixed martial arts, fought professionally and then got married, had kids, and I guess just never having a father figure, I wasn't able to really step up like I should have. I have another son from another relationship. He's 24 right now, and I kind of left him like my father left me. And then my 2 boys from my marriage, I again kind of did the same thing. After 5 and 3. Their mom and I got a divorce, custody battles, went back and forth. I had 50% custody of them, 47% for about 5 years. The last year or so last couple of years was addicted to pain pills and had many other addictions. Was living in motel after getting evicted. Was living in motels, bounced around there, and finally went to a rehab and started getting some help. But even after that took me coming up on 5 years since that first rehab. Went to 2 rehabs, 3 sober livings, 3 or 4 hospitalizations, 1 arrest, 5150. It's been quite the journey. Lots of ups and downs. Then I got everything back, and then I chose to give it all away again. And that was probably one of the greatest moments of my life.
Man, I tell you what, that's the process. It isn't all straight to the moon afterwards. It isn't all rainbows and sunshine and butterflies. Once you start to shift your perspective, to change the trajectory of the path that you're on in life, and the degradation that we all have experienced, in many ways, it's the cards that we were dealt. You hear the sad things about your family and the loss of loved ones. And unfortunately, some folks are dealt that hand. And if we don't have people to look up to, it's hard for a child to spin out of that without some sort of trauma that may lead to abuse down the line. And then you have the perpetration of the degradation, the things that are purposefully placed in our neighborhoods, in our doctor's offices, in places that we used to think were safe. And that's something that happened when I was growing up with the opioid dependence, the opioid epidemic. They call it whatever they want, but what it was the doctors overprescribing these medications and then cutting folks off when they were addicted. And what do folks do that are addicted and they're now cut off from the legal traditional way to get to that drug? Guess what? They're going to go to the street because it's twice as strong and twice as cheap. And once you enter that realm, it's a whole new ball field, man. But I'm not going to spend too long spinning that yarn, but I want to paint a very vivid picture of what it is. And although there are those things that are perpetrated upon us, we must take our personal responsibility back. It's only what's in our power is within our power. We don't have the power to change the grand design. We don't have the power to change unnecessary loss that we experience in our life. But we do have the power to begin to control our thoughts, control our emotions. That in turn will help control the way that we're feeling. And we can start digging ourselves out of this pit. And you heard Rich talk about it, man. Many times did he get out, make some sort of success. And I can really relate to that because so many times I dug my way out only to realize I had a glass jaw. Life would hit me. Something simple and I'd crush, I'd buckle. The girl would leave me. I'd lose a job. Probably was my fault, but I blame everybody else. And I'd slip right down that terrible drain again, off into the misery and degradation. But at some point, the pain becomes too unbearable. It becomes too unbearable. And for me, it took my 4th time sitting in state prison. Well, actually, when I had the epiphany, the weight lifted off my shoulder. I was sitting in county with a bunch of green sheets, charges, alleged, coming down off a bunch of stuff, battered and bruised and beat up. But I said, man, enough's enough. This is your fault that you're here, but your power put you here, but you also have the power to dig your way out. Rich, when did that pain for you just get too much where you said, all right, this is it. I got to make a change and it's got to be for good this time?
Wow, great question. Well, one thing real quick, after doing a lot of work on myself, I realized that deep-rooted trauma, not only from everything that I saw and dealt with, but from my family, from generations past, I really, especially when you look at epigenetics, it really makes a lot more sense now. And I think I was living with depression and all kinds of other mental health issues for most of my life. But being a man, I couldn't admit that, nor could I. But also, nobody told me that. I was just constantly told I was just angry. He's an angry kid. He'll grow out of it. That was what really stuck with me. And then going down the path that I want, the Marine Corps, law enforcement, I didn't want to admit to that stuff because then I might lose my job. I can't carry my gun. But to answer your question, God, I had so many rock bottoms. I overdosed with my kids in a motel room. Woke up in the back of an ambulance, thought I was dead. Was hospitalized for the next 3 or 4 days. That's when I lost custody of them. That was about, I guess, 4.5 years ago, and maybe 5 years ago. And I thought that was it, but that wasn't it. 2 days into it, I got a pill from my sister came to visit me from Texas. She said she went through my stuff at the motel, so I assumed that she had some of my stuff in her purse, and so I tricked her into, or manipulated her into going to the bathroom so I can go through her purse with all these wires and tubes hanging out of me, because I had pneumonia, and I'm reaching over there just to grab that oxy, even though my body was telling me not to, but I was so scared of the withdrawal, so scared of the anxiety was just, so I thought that was it, but that wasn't it. My kids moving to Virginia, thought that was it. My mom passing away from cancer, I thought that was it. Yeah, after all the rehabs and the sober livings, I was up in Orange County working these underground poker games, and I just moved into a place in Huntington Beach with a friend of mine, and I think it was that first day or the second day is all of a sudden when I found peace. I'd been doing much better. I wasn't addicted to the pills anymore. I wasn't going down the same paths. I had money in my pocket, had a roof over my head, but I still was struggling. I still didn't know how to deal with the inner peace. I didn't have that. And I remember that day, all of a sudden, just having this epiphany of this peace coming over me. And I'm like, wait a second. That's what I was looking for the entire time. I've been seeking, pleasures and happiness and I just realized I'm like, that peace is what I was looking for. And all of a sudden my shoulders kind of dropped and life became a lot easier.
I hear you, brother. I hear you. So that was the spark, man. That was the spark, that epiphany of just feeling that sense of inner peace that we're all looking for. And a lot of times when we're running the streets, we don't even realize it. But that's all we really need. It reminds me of a story that I read in a book called We're All Doing Time by Bo Lozoff. And it was the spark for me. This book was the spark for me. It was so simple, so spiritual, but in such a simple way that my cynical mind could just wrap my head around it. But one of the stories is about an animal called the musk ox, who in his lifetime travels thousands and thousands of miles following the scent. And I believe it dies never understanding that the scent originates within. So it's kind of like us people, we're constantly searching. I still do. I'm still guilty of this to this day, although I've evolved and made many, many strides in many, many aspects of my life, is that sometimes I forget that everything that we could possibly ever need is already within us. We just have to cultivate the happiness, cultivate the discipline, cultivate the talent or the energy and all these things that we're looking everywhere else for. It really is, it's already there, man. But it does take some work. It takes some work, and it's not always easy, man. But that was the spark for me, that same sense of inner peace that you experienced, although I had to work a little bit to get it. When I was in the county, looking at all those sheets, having that epiphany moment that I spoke about before, where I realized you're not a victim. This is your fault, Robert. But it's okay, because it could be your fault that you get out. So that was the epiphany-like moment. But the spark was reading that book. And then as I made my way down to state prison, I was doing 23-1 at Bayside State Prison. I used my hour out, usually working out, or this time it was at the library. And I ran into this man who had 25 years in, and he was a practicing Buddhist. He was the librarian. He was an inmate, but he was the librarian. And he gave me some Buddhist scriptures, like these packets of like all this Buddhist information, meditation practices, ways to look at your negative thoughts, like your demons, all within these pages. And I started as well as some explanations on basic yoga. And, being 23-1, I dug into this stuff. I dug into it, and it was a spark. Although I'm not a Buddhist or practicing Buddhist to this day, I still carry with me some of these philosophies, namely one written by the Dalai Lama in the book called The Heart of the Buddhist Path, where he talks about some Buddhists view negative thinking and negative emotions as an enemy. So it's like, as I'm trying to master myself and conquer all these demons, all these negative emotions that are constantly swirling within me, that meant a lot to me, because I now realize that I can disassociate myself with my thoughts. I don't have to accept them as my own unless I like them. So I really looked at all my negative thoughts like, no, that's the enemy, move on. No, that's the enemy, move on. And then with that, adding with a meditation practice that's designed in the scripture, adding that little bit of basic yoga to activate my body. So now I'm starting to fire on all cylinders. I'm activating the mind. I'm activating the body. I'm starting to see things differently than I've ever seen them before, and experience life in a way that I've never experienced before, right there in that 8x8 concrete cell. And that spark carries with me to this day. You had the overwhelming sense of peace as that epiphany-like moment that, okay, this is the last time I'm going to change for good. But was there another spark that set in the action? If the epiphany was the thought and the feeling, what was the spark that set it into action?
The spark? Well, it's funny you say that. I'm right next to the spark. Calvary Chapel is the church I go to, and then right next to me on the other side is Champion Ice Martial Arts, where I teach now.
Awesome.
And I saw the movie Jesus Revolution, and after coming from where I came from up in Orange County, I was working doing, like I said, poker and doing security for these underground poker games. But I was also still struggling. Was dealing coke, Adderall, hanging out with people that made a lot more money than I'd ever seen before, 6, 7, 8 figures, and living a completely different lifestyle. And the last day that I was up there, the house that I was living in, we had a home invasion. 3 guys came with a gun, and long story short, after that, I was like, you know what? I'm done. I came back down here, started trying to find myself, kind of started working with the homeless community, helping out there, and saw the movie Jesus Revolution, as well as The Chosen. My friend brought me to Calvary Chapel. I started diving deeper into Jesus, what he was about, and what he believed in, and that really changed me, because then all of a sudden it started connecting everything else with the new age stuff that I was doing, the holistic practices, the meditation, the breath work, the cold exposure, the fasting has been huge, not just from food, but just from everything in life. And not only did I hear Jesus talking about that, but I'm reading that in the Bible, and I just started looking at things completely different. Now I read the Bible and I hear something completely different. And I started looking into Buddhism and Hinduism and different other religions and spiritualities, and it just all started connecting. And the one thing I keep seeing is don't fear, don't be anxious, rely on my presence, trust in my faith. And I just having a completely different perspective on things. And I started just, trusting in my higher consciousness and God and Jesus, whatever we want to call it. For me, it's all the same thing. I truly believe that they're all talking about the same general idea, just to have faith and not be anxious, not live in fear, because that just destroys our body. That's what I truly believe, that the emotions within our body, that trapped emotions, will cause all the problems we have. And just a little side note, I had gotten up to 305 pounds. My body was completely broken. Arthritis in my knee, arthritis in my shoulder, degenerative disc disorder, and minor scoliosis in my back, Lyme disease, hypothyroidism, stomach problems, sleep problems, testosterone up and down, and estrogen. Just my body was completely failing, and I truly believe it was all the emotions that were trapped inside of me, all the negative thinking, all the just anger and grief and frustration. And because now, like you said earlier, I realized, wait a second, if I created all that mess before, because I truly realized and believe that I manifested all of that. I focused on losing my kids. I focused on losing my mom. I couldn't get my mind off of that. I focused on losing my apartment and my job and getting fired, and all those things happened. And then I was like, wait a second, what if I focus on rebuilding my life and creating the life I want? And that's exactly what's been happening.
Absolutely, man. Absolutely. God bless, brother. That's amazing. That's powerful stuff. It really, it just brings me back, man. Because sometimes, I'm far removed from it, where I've been on this path for a while. And that's why I love coming back here to talk to people like yourself that are a little earlier on in the process. And I really hope that this episode reaches people that are even earlier in on the process, because a lot of times when you're in that, you don't think nobody went through it. You think you're by yourself. You feel alone. You feel isolated. And I definitely felt like there's no one there to help me. And there wasn't. The only thing is I wasn't willing to help myself and listen to a podcast or read a book or sit down and pray. And once I started doing those things, taking what I needed, leaving the rest, and moving on, I was really able to make progress. But as we progress, there are ups and downs, man. And we can't allow ourselves to get knocked off the wagon at every one of life's road bumps, because these things happen frequently. Even now, me moving into 7 or 8 years of sobriety and intense self-improvement work, man, I go through a week here or a week there or a couple of days here and there where I'm just holding on to the, life is crazy. There's a lot of things happening. I'm just going, all right. Most days I'm focused out to thrive. Today, I'm just trying to survive, man, get through, and then we're going to try again tomorrow. But because of those life's up and downs and the adversity that we all will face, whether we're doing the right thing or doing the wrong thing, I find peace and safety in structure, in routine. We have to, I feel like, if you want to say us as addicts or us as people that are prone to this sort of behavior, I feel like the savior for us is routine, is structure, and maintaining. Because if we're not, well, there's maintenance, but then there's also my theory, or Lean Six Sigma's theory of continuous improvement. And my theory with that is that you do have to continually be striving for something, because if you're not, you're more apt to backslide. But at the bare minimum, this maintenance that I'm talking about is essential. And I know you talked about it a little bit before, Rich. A lot of the things you do are exact same thing as me. And I think it's a general speaking, because everyone's different and everybody reacts to everything different. But in that generalized way, I think you're going to hit the nail on the head. Sun, fresh air, nature, clean drinking water, clean food, staying away from toxins, like you said, the fasting, the sauna, the cold water. I get into a little bit of all of that, mix and match on days. Well, my best day, I do it all, man. How are you doing with that maintaining, and what exactly are you doing?
So all that, I try to do it every day. It's gotten to the point where it's almost subconscious that I get most of that done every single day. And then I've released myself from attachments from things. I fasted from simple things like my cell phone. I cut off my service probably about a year ago, so now I can only use it on Wi-Fi. I, basically I don't want to say gave it all away, but gave it all away, and yeah, I'd say gave it all away in a sense. When I came back down here from Orange County, I had about maybe 8,000, maybe 10,000 in crypto, and use that at first to stay in motels and buy a car and things of that nature. And then I started giving it back to my clients that needed it. And now I've been basically, I don't want to say living in my car, because I don't live there. I sleep in it, sleep usually about a block away from the beach, and, listen to the ocean waves crash when I wake up and when I go to sleep. I honestly don't see myself getting an apartment or a house anytime soon. And it's not a financial thing. I've had the option. I've had the opportunity. It's just, one of my concerns, I guess, or / fears, is falling back. And I'm not at that place yet where, because the old me, once I was done with whatever I was doing, for instance, this podcast, I'd go back home and I'd, go throw the Netflix on or this, that, and just, lounge around. And whereas now I wake up at 5, 6 in the morning, go straight to the gym and I'm out and about all day long. Not till, the end of the day, 9 and 10 o'clock, I go to sleep for maybe 5, 6 hours, wake back up and go do it again. And it feels so much greater. Again, just release attachments to just all the things that I thought I needed. And I've become very minimalistic. I have 3 pairs of shorts, maybe five or six, tank tops. I try my hardest to be, one with God and nature as much as I can. And then discipline has brought me so much freedom. It really has. Mm-hmm. Those rituals every day. I try to, thankfully I live in San Diego, so the weather is pretty amazing, and I'm absolutely grateful for that. But I try to get sun, fresh air, praying, meditation, breath work, stretching, exercise, journaling, drawing, being creative, just every single, whereas again, like we talked about earlier, those things just, if they happen, they weren't intentional before. And as I was talking about earlier, all those struggles, I was suicidal for most of my life. I remember thinking about it probably since, 5th grade. It wasn't all the time. It was just, dips and valleys. And that's what I realized. My life was a roller coaster. And now I feel like it's a straight line with some peaks, but no more valleys. And it's, I'll be honest, I have nothing to lose anymore. That's the biggest thing. All the money I make, I put back to my clients, and to the community, and to whoever, needs it. The only thing I spend money on is gas. For me personally, is gas and food. And I honestly, I couldn't be happier.
Man, it's admirable. It's admirable, man. And I think you're on the right track. All the things that you're doing, it just feels to me like, you're living your life now. For so many years, you ran around and experienced what you experienced, but now you're living life, and you're living it on your own terms, man. And I wish you all the best with it. God bless you, for real, man. And
Gotcha.
I think you said it last time we talked, and we'll end with this as well as anything you want to talk about that you got going on is you said, I'm doing this. All the things that you just said, you basically said it, and you go, no one's going to knock me off my square but me. I'm the only one that could mess this up. And a lot of times I feel like us, once again, I don't like to say addicts or whatever, but I do understand that there is a lot of us that have these tendencies. We are our own worst enemies, and it all starts in the mind. We torture ourselves, and then we, go behave in ways that we don't want to behave that are detrimental to our lives. But we can also be our hero, because no one's going to save us. There's no one coming in to swoop in and dig us out of the degradation and the misery that we put ourselves in. We place ourselves in. Remember that rock bottom is fertile soil. It's a dark, cold, damp place, and that is the best place for growth. That's where I place all my seeds out in the garden. Dark, damp place, and you also come to a stop where you can take a look at things. You can take a look at what did I do to get here? What is within my power that I could do right now to start getting the hell out, man? And that's why I'm here with Rich and we're talking about it, because there is a way out and you have help. You ever got a question, you can always hit me up, creatinggreatnesspodcast@gmail.com. But that understanding, Rich, that you are the only person that can knock you off your square, that you have the power to either continue the upward incline or you can choose to do wrong. How do you feel about that, man? Like, as opposed to before, I know a lot of folks like myself, I blamed everybody else. But when I did accept that power, that this was my fault, that I'm doing bad, and now it's my fault if I'm doing good, it really just went a long way with me fixing my entire life. I understand what's in my power. I understand the laws of karma. And if I continue to do good, I'm going to receive good. How do you grapple with that now as opposed to how you used to?
So, how I used to, my life was ran of fear. I was just so fearful of everything, which is, again, I believe a big reason why I went into all these masculine things, the Marine Corps, mixed martial arts, wrestling, football, law enforcement. I had so much fear of judgment, we can call it whatever word we want. Fears, concerns, worries, stresses. It was just constantly in my head, just spiraling out of control. I never felt good enough, never felt worthy. I just never liked myself. I always thought I was fat, and I've always had weight issues. So it consumed me. And that anxiety, especially when I got addicted to drugs, I remember telling myself I'd be going to pick up drugs and pills or cheating on my ex-wife or doing these things. And I'd be punching myself in the head, telling myself, stop, don't turn around. Just, you don't need to do this. You're going to lose everything. And so many other things, when I was stealing, when I was just doing some horrendous things that I knew better. I did know better, but my body, my central nervous system, I felt like it was ripping me apart, forcing me to do this. Whereas my mind, I'd be punching myself in the head and slam and I'd start thinking about driving off the side of the road, and I just couldn't. I couldn't. I'd like to say that I know, because I know better. I knew better then, but that was the best version of me. Because if I could have done better, I would have. I truly believe that. And whereas now, knowing that, like you said, having that power that I created all that, because I was the victim as well. I made my sister's life miserable, my mom's life miserable, my ex-wife's life miserable, probably even my kids to a certain degree. That all that anger inside me, I took it out on everybody else unknowingly to a certain degree. But I didn't know how to release it. I didn't have any coping mechanisms. And so once I started finding those coping mechanisms, I can't see a way back. I haven't been sick in over 2 years. I haven't been injured in well over that. I haven't even felt a cramp in my side that I used to, always have problems with. I haven't had stomach issues, don't have sleep problems. all those things are gone. And I don't see a way for me to slide back again. I just, especially because I've released the attachments. I love my kids to death and, you know, all three of them. And I know I'll have a relationship with them again one day. When, where, why, how, I don't know. But that's also what I've released is those expectations. I learned it in rehab, expectations of future resentments. And that was, you know, releasing myself of those things. But now it just, again, peace. And each and every day, my focus and goal is to create the best version of myself so that I can be of service to this world and humanity as best I possibly can through martial arts and wrestling and sports and you know, art and however else I can, you know, help in any other way.
Man, and do you find that service is like when you feel the most alive? I seen this gentleman. Yes, I was far removed from the problem. I was driving down the street, but there was a lady broken down and she was pushing her van onto the shoulder. And I watched this older gentleman, little overweight, I'm just keeping it real, pulled over his car, hopped out of that car, moved as fast as he could over to help that lady push that van. And I told my wife, I go, you see, I go, there's still good people out there. I go, you see how he jumped out of that car? He was waiting for an opportunity to be of service. Because I tell you, that's when I feel the most alive. That's when I feel this is what I'm here to do, man. I mean, it's just, it's hard to articulate. You see, I get jammed up because it's just an overwhelming feeling that you have. Do you feel like that service aspect of it is just a huge key to it?
Oh yes. And that's why I share my story. I know I'm being judged. I know I'm being judged by my family, my friends. I finally had somebody turn to me when I told them about overdosing my kids and taking my kids on drug runs and things of that nature that I thought was normal. Because it wasn't a drug run. I was going to my friend's house. And I'd made these things, and they weren't real drugs because they were pills from a doctor. These are the stories I told myself. And he turned to me and says, I want to punch you in the face right now. He's a black belt martial artist who actually, you know, probably believed he could have, you know, taken me or whatever. And I was like, whoa, I taken aback by that at first. And then I thanked him. I said, I can't even imagine how many other people have wanted to say that to me, but were afraid, you know, or, you know, whatever, you know, because of my position or because of my size or because of my whatever. But I was like, wow, that really hit home. And I was just like, yeah, I know people are judging me. And I'm, you know what, though, I'm fine with that because I know who I am. I know what my intention is. I know what I'm doing. Whereas before I couldn't. I couldn't stand on my own 2 feet. And being of service now, that's what my life is turned to. That's all I don't ever want to take a vacation again. I don't have any plans of ever retiring. I want to work till, you know, I'm 120 years old. I enjoy doing what I'm doing. You know what I mean? My job, I guess you can call it, is teaching martial arts, but I don't get paid for it. It's a trade. We have a trade, you know, a trade or barter. The same thing with all my other clients. If they do pay me, you know, it's a donation that goes towards my clients and whatever else I'm doing a service. But I have no, you know, whereas again, before I wanted to buy the newest, you know, sneakers or PlayStation or, you know, games and iPhone and things of that nature. I was never too materialistic, but enough, you know what I mean? I like nice clothes and I liked going on vacation and things of that nature. But my goal now is just to be of service and to make my vessel as complete and as powerful as possible so that I can show people what we're capable of doing and share my story as much as possible. Because to sum this up, I didn't think there was any way I was getting out of that dark hole. I remember laying in motel rooms, sleeping in an RV in a Home Depot parking lot, or you know, borrowing my friend's daughter's room, or just, you know, these, you know, these, again, jail cells that I put myself in, never thinking I was going to get out of it. I couldn't even think past my next high most days. Every once in a while I could think maybe the next couple of days if I was going to see my kids or things of that nature. But by the end, I couldn't see past, the next day. And so now I have a future, a year, 3 years, 5 years, 10 years, 20 years down the road that I'm creating, and I'm watching myself manifest it all. And I know it's all going to come to fruition. I don't know how, I don't know in which way, but I don't care. You know what I mean? I know what my intention is, and that's what brings me peace.
Absolutely, man. And I hope that this episode just shows everyone out there what we are truly capable of. One of the hardest things to hear when I'm volunteering at the prison is there any coming back from this? Guys that have done horrible, horrendous things. And my answer to them is always the same. There's coming back from anything. As long as you're breathing, as long as there's breath in your lungs, you can change. You can change. You can bring about a change. You can start right now, this very moment, man. Thank you so much, Rich, for coming on, man. It's been an absolutely fantastic episode. This is the things I want to be talking about, really creating change, just putting it on display. Is there anything you want to say to the folks before you get out of here? Anything you're doing, anything you're involved in? Any closing thoughts?
Well, the one word that popped in my head is repentance. That's been a huge part of my story, is not only, repenting to, the people and family that I hurt, but just letting out to the world, all my sins, because by doing that, I don't have to look over my shoulder anymore. I'm not worried about someone tapping me on the shoulder. Hey, remember when you did this to me? Remember when I've tried to, basically purge myself of all the sins. Again, like I said, it was, as quite a few. And I don't have money to lose. I don't have a house to lose. I want to share everything from my perspective as well. Yeah, repentance, I think, is huge. And again, whether it's to God, whether it's to yourself, whether it's to family, not only asking for forgiveness, but mostly forgiveness of myself, because that's who I was beaten up the most. Now, mind you, I hope my friends and family, one day forgive me and understand. But the hardest one to get over was me, because again, I didn't know how to love myself at all. I just had so much hatred towards myself, and so yeah. As you pointed out, if anybody ever has any questions, concerns, thoughts, wants to, please reach out to me. You can get me on Instagram. You can see a little bit of my story. My weight loss, my just transformation. A lot of people, congratulate me on the weight loss, as well as, or on the getting clean part. Those are only like a tiny bit of it. Just the change of perspective, the hope, the faith, just knowing it's all going to work out. I know I don't. The last time I had a bad day was probably a year ago, or over a year ago. And mind you, life still happens to me, but I just look at it from a completely different perspective now. And I don't see it as, I find the lesson and I move on. I don't dwell on this or that, or, this did this to me, or he did this to me, or and I also take responsibility for everything. Everything that happens in my life is my responsibility. I take accountability for it. And then again, like I said, find the lesson, see how I can, utilize it in my life. And like I said, move on.
All right, brother, man. I appreciate you coming on. We're going to do it again sometime soon. And thank y'all for listening in. God bless.